Guys, how's it going? It's Al. Welcome back to another How to Win on Draftkings video. I have a guest, a very special guest. It's like one of those after school specials. I'm going to talk with my old DFS Edge podcast co-host Adam Levitan from EstablishTheRun.com, and we're going to talk about some tips on how you can be better at daily fantasy PGA, daily fantasy golf. That's right. We're going to talk about how to do the golf, how to bet the golf, how to play the golf, and how to possibly put yourself in a better position to win at the daily fantasy golf tournaments that are out there on DraftKings every single week. I will say this, I have not played golf in DFS religiously for like the last 3-4 years. It kind of conflicts with my baseball coaching schedule for my kids. I still dabble from time to time. Our Discord is always hopping for the Twitch and YouTube channel members and subs who do play golf on a week in, week out basis. And when I play, I definitely hit that up and use some of the strategies I used to employ back when I did play in 2016, 2017, 2018, when I was being pretty successful at it. But, you know, sometimes life gets in the way. So I'm bringing in an expert, sort of. You heard him laugh in the background, to talk to us about some great golf strategies as the game has evolved since that time until now. So drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell, leave a reply, share the video, click all the damn things, and let's go.
He's a legend.
Adam, how's it going, man?
Al, great to see you, brother. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Like I said, you guys over at Establish the Run have kicked off your golf product recently, right around the Masters. We're like a month after that at this point. Why don't you tell everybody about the product? There's a link down below in the pinned comment. Just to let me know that you see that link in the pin. Hit a like on that comment. Just let me know that you see it. Even if you're not going to click the link. I'd love it if you click the link. But like, you know, you got to go check out the stuff they have at ETR. But like, just let me know that you see the link down below. Adam, tell them all about the golf product over at ETR.
Well, I think the bottom line is we're getting old, man. And
Yep.
as you get old, you play golf and you like golf. And I swear, like, I never, I mean, in the last 20 years, I probably haven't picked up a golf club or watched much golf, but I got into playing DFS golf a lot over the last, I don't know, 2 to 3 years. And I was doing some work with Rufus Peabody, who I can explain more about in a second here. And so I started to get really into golf again. And man, like, if you've never played DFS golf, you know, it may not be like the biggest edge we can find, but I think it probably is the most fun. A, you're up at 6:30, you can actually watch your golf. B, you have a cut sweat on Friday. C, for one buy-in on Thursday morning, you can get a 4-day sweat. You often get a full 4-day sweat. So I really love golf. I think that, you know, it is for at least like my generation, you know, I was born in 82. Like as we get older, I don't think there's any doubt that golf is going to be like the number 2 or number 3 sport for my generation. Like nobody watches baseball anymore. Nobody watches hockey. Maybe you can make a case for MMA or some like auto racing thing, but I really think like after NFL and NBA, and golf may even get bigger than NBA, I think golf is the next one. So yeah, I wanted to prioritize launching a golf product for us, and I can talk more about it in a second here, but I'm curious what you think about that, Al. Like I really think that golf, like in the next 20 years, will be either like the number 2 or number 3 sport. It maybe not overall, but like for our generation.
I was going to say, you're insane. It's not overtaking the NBA. That's just not happening. The NBA is just too good a product. It's too fun to watch. The athletes are the best athletes in the world. You know, the NFL and the NBA are the two best, most athletic, most dynamic athletes in the world. They're superhuman. They're absolute freaks. And like that golf is not passing either one of those, in my opinion. But in terms of a DFS sport, in terms of playability, in terms of relatability to a DFS player, ease of play, ease of building a solid line. Like it's very easy to look at an NFL or an NBA lineup and say, you know what? That lineup sucks. Like that lineup's going to lose. That lineup sucks. It's much harder to do with golf because the pricing is based at least primarily on the odds. So everybody's going to have one of the favorites. Everybody's going to have one of the second tier guys, and then they're going to have 2, 3, well, 3 at least value plays, and then a mid-tier guy. That's the basic roster build for golf. But there are things that you can do, like you said, to get an edge. I know that Rufus is a big-time sports bettor. Came in second, I believe, on a technicality in the first DraftKings Sports Betting Championship. Isn't that true? And then he just missed a massive bet in the last tournament, which was like $500 in the PGA Championship on one, like a value play in DFS, a low-tier player to win like $150,000 or a couple $100,000 and lost on the double bogey on 18.
Right, Mito Pereira double bogeyed 18. So yeah, so Rufus has been betting golf professionally and like controls the entire market. When I say controls the entire market, I mean when he bets, the market moves at, Circa and Chris and places like that, and then other books like DraftKings and FanDuel and the other books all copy him, all copy those line moves from Chris and Pinnacle. And so, I mean, Rufus is like I don't know everybody who bets, but to me, like the biggest winner in golf. And basically, what we decided to do was to preserve his ability to bet. We're not going to release any DFS projections until Wednesday, which is fine because nobody should be building before Wednesday anyways in golf because weather is so important, which we can talk about more in a second here. But yeah, he's basically running the sims that he runs for betting and then mapping it to DraftKings scoring. And so, we have projected points for every player in the field. Obviously, this is simulation based. So, there's some amount of times that Justin Thomas doesn't make the cut, but then we have make cut odds probability. Rufus had Justin Thomas this week, at 87.8% odds to make the cut at the Charles Schwab. And so you simulate all that out. So we have a base projection, a value based on their salary, projected ownership, which, I think is harder for golf because it's not as projection based as some other games. People aren't playing the projections as hard as they are, say, in NBA or even NFL, but
because there's more variance because of if a middling golfer makes the cut, all of a sudden he is going to massively outpace his projection, and the other way around if a favorite doesn't make it. But that lends itself more to the game theory aspect for roster building.
You're giving away one of my tips. I don't have that many tips.
I teased it.
You're giving one away already. I teased it. So we also have ownership, as I said. And yeah, I think our ownership's been really strong. We have Rufus' ceiling projections, then we have a volatility metric because obviously some guys, like think Jim Furyk, if he used to follow golf a while ago, like really steady, like makes a lot of cuts. Charles Howell makes a lot of pars, makes a lot of cuts, but there's guys with way, way, way wider range, like Siwoo Kim or Terrell Hatton. They can shoot 64 and they can shoot 78. And so we tried to bake that into a volatility score also. So yeah. And, I don't know if we want to get into tips here, but if we do, I have an important tip along those lines for number one.
Well, this is a tips video that we're about to hit your 3 tips because you said 3. 5 is too much. 5 is right out. This is like the holy hand grenade of how to win on DraftKings video. What used to work, let me start there. The way that I started in daily fantasy golf was way back when I had a site for daily fantasy boot camp, and we had a really good golf projection set and stuff. And so like not many other people did, and not many people, daily fantasy golf was new. And so the way that we went about building back then was starting around value. So I would pick my 3 value plays. Typically speaking, most people are on the percentages on the favorites are mostly like 20 to 35%. Like everybody's got to have a favorite because you got to spend the money somewhere. And then you fill in the mid-range. So I would start with value, pick my stud, and then fill in with a couple of mid-range guys. And that was good enough back then. Like that was how simple it was to be a winning daily fantasy golf player. But as time moves on in daily fantasy, because it's such a young space, specifically daily fantasy golf, which is even younger than daily fantasy football or baseball, which have been around since 2009, 2010. Golf kind of started in 2015, 2016. So it's a younger sport in terms of the DFS crowd. But as it moves towards more efficiency, you're going to have to change. So based on what used to be, what's still viable and what's not, Adam, what are your 3 tips for how to be better at daily fantasy golf?
Yeah. So I'm curious on what you said. I mean, basically you're saying that like you're filling out the cap and you want to make sure you have at least one stud. And naturally, once you want to fill out the cap fully and you have one stud, naturally you're going to have a couple value plays and a couple mid-range, right? Like that's just like the way it goes if you want to fill your whole cap, right?
Yes, but I would always start like the way that my, our golf pro, I guess, like I'm clearly giving you the subpar golf, but like our golf pro at the time on our site was like, start with your value plays. That's where you need to prioritize. And I'll tee you up again. You want to prioritize a little bit away from the most played, the highest percent projected value play, because everybody's going to be on that guy and he can miss the cut. He's a value play. He's going to make the cut like 60-70% of the time overall on a season, and not like 95 to 100% like the studs. So how much does percentage played, projected wise at least, play into the way that you go about building?
I mean, this is everything in golf. So I think understanding how close guys are in golf, like, how often does Alex Caruso outscore LeBron James on a slate, right? Like almost never, right? How often does the number 100 golfer in the world outscore the number 1 golfer in the world? Like a reasonable amount of time, 20, 30% of the time. And so like all the equities on these guys run together so closely. So you have to understand that like there is so much about playing winning. DFS golf is projected ownership, as Al referred to. In other words, like, man, some of these guys that are cheap, like we've had weeks where Wyndham Clark is like 20% owned, Gary Woodland, 20% owned. This week, we had a good projection on Brian Harmon, but man, I didn't play him because we had him projected for 17% owned. I don't need a 17% owned Brian Harmon when there's 143 other guys in the field who are professional golfers, and the equity between these guys runs so tightly together. And so, it's even more so than in football or basketball. I'm struggling to eat chalk. Now, how can you do this more quantitatively? If you have the any type of optimizer, I use the Fantasy Labs optimizer, but you can set, hey, I don't want my cumulative projected ownership above 60%. And I think that's right in the range that you want for the lottery, for the really large field stuff. Maybe you can go to 70% in certain slates and stuff like that. But once you start getting beyond that, I think it's a problem. And when you're thinking about ownership, it doesn't mean that you can't play someone who's 20%. Again, cumulative or product ownership needs to stay low. So if you have Jordan Spieth, who we had predicted for the most owned on the slate this week, you better have some guys who are also 2, 3, 4, 5% owned on that team also. But yeah, I mean, any golfer, any week can miss the cut. It's not like it is in the NFL or NBA where it's just like stone cold shocking if Patrick Mahomes doesn't have 20 DraftKings points.
It's like the any given Sunday approach to daily fantasy, like football, but now it's for golf. Like anybody can make or miss the cut on any week. And Chad is pointing out that Harmon currently is +7 and is not teed off this afternoon. So
don't
clearly
try
bad
to tilt
chalk.
me. I'm having a nice Friday. Don't try to tilt me.
No, he's saying that's bad chalk. Like that's a perfect example of exactly what you're saying. Yeah. To like, here's a play that's a value play that everybody's going to be on, and it can just blow up because the key in golf is to get 6 of 6. If you don't know what that means, you roster six different golfers on your lineup every week, and if you have players that don't make the cut, they don't get to play on Saturday and Sunday. You get points for every par. You get more points for a bogey. More points for a birdie than you do for a par. You get lose as many points for a bogey as you do for a birdie. So if you have a player that gets 18 pars or a player that gets 9 bogeys and 9 birdies, you're actually going to come out ahead versus the par guy. You get more points for a birdie than a bogey. So like you're going to end up ahead if you take those chances on guys that have the higher variance, that are going to take risks, that are going to try and pin seek, and all of those things. And speaking to the Harmon chalk, not specifically Harmon chalk, but more in general, anybody can put one in the drink on any shot. They just hit it wrong. They just get unlucky. Golf's a very hard sport to play, even at the professional level. As good as those guys are, as nails as they are, sometimes they just shank one, or it hits the front of the green and slides off the false front and rolls right into the water, and they don't make the cut. You're just, F's in the chat. There's nothing you can do about it.
Exactly. And so I that's a good lead into the number 2 tip that I have here, because the difference between these guys is so small that things like weather and the tee time related to their weather and course fit, how their game fits the course, are actually going to be really, really, really important. And so what Rufus is doing is tracking weather through like surfing sites and all these kind of other advanced wind sites to try to simulate out how often players are playing in wind and which direction it's coming from on which hole, et cetera, et cetera. And then he's also looking at course fit. In other words, this course on hole 3 is a dog leg left. Scotty Scheffler is going to be roughly, 150 yards out in this dog leg. How well does he perform on this shot? And so, when it's so close between all these guys, understanding weather, understanding guys who might be banged up. And, I had fade on Berger this week because I think his back is still bothering him, even though he's playing. Hideki Matsuyama has this neck thing. I was reading Japanese newspaper reports last week and translating them through Google Translate to try to get information on Hideki Matsuyama. When these guys are close, if they're injured at all, it's an easy fade for me, because even if they weren't like injured, they're not that likely to win the tournament anyways. And then the weather and understanding course fit too. So those would be things that I think we can do for you that are really hard to do yourself, that can help you like start a baseline for how good guys are in X weather and on X course.
So and the podcast is a subscriber only podcast like football, or is it a public podcast?
Podcast is subscriber only. Me, Rufus, and CSU Ram, Peter Jennings. Yeah.
Yeah, I know those.
Yeah.
So I know you and Peter, and I know of Rufus. I've never met. Yeah. So there's obviously two different game types. Specifically, there's cash games, head-to-heads, 50-50s, double-ups. There's GPPs. I tend to play the GPPs in everything at this point. But most of what we're talking about in this video is GPP-centric. Cash games, are you fading any of the chalk in cash games, or are you just saying, I'm going to play the optimal, and that's just the optimal?
Yeah, I'm not fading. I don't care about how owned the guy is in cash. I'll say that one thing that you can run into when you're playing cash is that getting 5 of 6, 6 of 6 through the cut, obviously important GPPs, but it's like devastating if you don't do so in cash. And so a lot of times, like in cash, you can't play Scheffler, Rahm, Thomas, like optimally because you have too many guys who may not make the cut. So like there may be a guy you like who's like 6,800 or 7,200 on DraftKings, and that's fine. But if they're only like 60% to make the cut or 55% to make the cut, I mean, that's really scary in cash. So if you're playing cash, which I don't necessarily recommend a ton of in golf, but if you are, I'd just be really, really careful about guys really likely to make the cut because that's really all that counts.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't have a lead into your next.
Okay.
Mostly because I don't know what they are. So I don't. You didn't let me know.
I'm going to surprise.
Nice.
Okay. The biggest edge right now in golf DFS, and I shouldn't be sharing this, but Al's going to like clip this up and he's going to
just for the viewers. This is just for this is a YouTube exclusive for my viewers. Adam's #1 most powerful tip in golf.
The biggest edge right now is not in main slate golf. It is in Showdown golf. People are doing the most egregious things, specifically on Friday and Saturday. They see a guy go out and shoot 6 under on Thursday. Does that have any effect on what he'll do on Friday? Now, Rufus would tell you, and I've asked Rufus this, that it has some effect because guys playing well, recent form means more than in golf than anything else, right? It means the guy's playing well. It's still one round of golf. Maybe the course fits him. It's still one round of golf. There is massively inflated ownership on Showdown Friday for anyone who played well on Thursday, and on Saturday for anyone who played well Thursday, Friday. It's so outrageous. And so Rufus's projections are just for one round, and he bakes in what happened on Thursday. He bakes in what happened on Friday, but it's just part of the puzzle. It doesn't mean everything. And so we get some guys that Rufus has for incredible plays on these Showdown slates at minuscule ownership because people are sitting on their toilet. They're clicking guys who played well the day before. They're not actually thinking about a guy's long-term capabilities. So I hope that makes sense. I'm not sure Showdown is the biggest edge in other sports, but to me right now, like if you're actually playing golf not for fun, but to make money, it would be Showdown.
So this is how I'm reading that, okay? And you tell me if I'm incorrect. Essentially, there's a lot of recency bias.
100%.
For people like, I saw this guy do well yesterday. He went 5 under on Friday. So on the Saturday Showdown, it's in their mind that this guy's doing well. And this other guy, well, he was just 1 under, so they're not going to play him. Even though they're equal plays, one is going to be at 35 to 50%, and the other one's going to be at 5%. So essentially, even though Rufus on the projections, on round by round projections, is weighting or baking those things into the projections, they're weighted properly on the ETR projections, as opposed to everybody else who is merely using recency bias and ignoring all of these other really good plays for the guy who did well yesterday. Just because the roulette wheel hit red 5 times in a row does not mean that there is a difference, that the next one is going to be black or red. It's gambler's fallacy. The last round has some weight, but not as much weight as people are weighing it for or applying to it in golf.
Exactly. You got it. Exactly. I mean, it's not complicated at all, but I also think that like there's not a lot of time to build Showdown lineups. Like, Rufus is working until Rufus is working on it until like 11 p.m., sometimes 10 p.m. Eastern. And then the slate locks the next morning at like 6 a.m. So that's another reason that like, people aren't up in those hours. Like if you really want to grind though, like I do think that's the best spot to do it.
Yeah. So for you guys that are out there really trying to grind a bankroll in golf, the bigger edge is probably in the Showdown slates Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But if you're playing on the main slates, focus on your percentages, see who is where the public is going, and kind of be willing to at least fade that guy or force in a couple of lower played values that don't look like they're going to carry the percent number that the other ones are going to carry in those games. And it's very easy to find a stud that's going to do that. It's a little bit more difficult, or a little getting out of your comfort zone. So it's a little more unnerving to not play a guy like, as we said for this particular week, was Harmon. But those guys can blow up. And really, when they blow up, they're going to blow up 25, 30, 40% of the field that's going to get 5 of 6 through at the most, while you might have a chance to slide through with a guy at 2 or 5%. And if that guy top 10s or top 15s, you're at a massive advantage versus the field. So Adam, thank you for being here. What? No, I don't want to end it if you're still going. What's up?
No, the only thing that I was going to say is that, like JT or Rom underperforming is usually means like 20th or 25th. And I think you can still win with that. So I'd say that I'm more likely to eat chalk at the higher end than I am at the lower end. That was the only last thing I had.
So I always would just have different distributions of the stud golfers. Let's say the 10K plus guys, right? So you'd have one 10K guy, you'd have 2 guys between 9,500 and 8K, and then 7,900 and down, you'd have 3 guys. That's the standard build in daily fantasy golf. But like Rory would be like 30% and Spieth would be like 30%. And they're all like 20 to 35%. Maybe you can take a chance on the one guy that everybody's ignoring at that 10K level, the 95 plus level. That is like 5 or 8%, but they all make the cut like 95% of the time. And then some weeks they compete for the championship that week, and some weeks they don't. But like finish position is everything. Getting 6 of 6 through the cut is everything to me. And following through with getting out of your comfort zone and being willing to play players that are projected for a lower percent is great. So go check out the great products that they have over at establishtherun.com. The link is again down below in the pinned comment. They have a lot of great content, both written, projections wise, and subscriber only podcasts for that specific sport. Other than that, look out for another video right here. So do you have your 5 tips? Because I don't know 5 tips.
Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to come prepared with 5 tips.
I freaking wrote you with this. Like, you need to have 5 tips.
We better bring it down to 3.
He's a legend.